Hello, everyone. I just thought I would give you a little improvisation there, definitely in the key of G where we're going to be working today. That's right, you're up here on this camera. Also, I try and give a couple of minutes for everyone to come on in and say hello. So please do say hello, maybe where you're tuning in from. And also, if you can hear me and see me correctly. Well, I'll get rid of my hand there. So if you can see me and hear me correctly, that'd be great to know, because I actually just had a bit of a snafu with the audio, so it'd be good to know. Well, excuse me, it is the third scale workshop that we're going to have. Looking forward to going through that. We're actually going to stay with the same 2-octave G major scale that we worked with last time in number 2. And for that, we're going to actually do some more sort of intermediate approaches. And of course, if you're more of a beginner player, you can still follow along as best you can, play along with some just single notes or one note as we go along through some rhythms, because we are going to do some speed bursts today, some rhythms, triplets and sixteenths, semiquavers, also some synchronization exercises, and maybe even finish off with some shifting, which was where we'll go next time. So it's great to see everyone saying hello in the chat. I will get going in a couple of minutes. I always just like to wait a couple of minutes to get everyone in, saying hello, and then of course we'll get into the workshop. So do have your guitar handy. Please follow along. You don't need any music for this. I'll show you the way through. So it sounds like everyone can hear. So Stephen Hogg, good day, Stephen, tuning in from Iowa. Erica Green says, I wish there were a flamenco guitar corner. Well, I love flamenco. It's such an amazing type of music. So you and me both. John Roberto, it's great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, great. It looks like a lot of people are tuning in here. Good to see everyone. Just a nice opportunity in general to be together, even if it has to be digital. I think it's good for the soul. So just some housekeeping. If you're new to this or watching the replay and you want to know more about them or know about these things in advance, you can either subscribe to the YouTube channel, Classical Guitar Corner, as a YouTube channel. And I believe it sends out notifications when this channel goes live. It does that automatically, which is great. Or you can go to classicalguitarcorner.com/live, and there's a special mailing list there that you can sign up for. And I send out an email a few hours ahead of time to those people, specifically just saying, I'm about to go live in a few hours. Just a reminder, because it was a challenge initially to make sure everyone knew that we were running these live sessions. But we're trying to run them because it's a wonderful thing to do, I think. Just we're going to take our focus and take it off everything else in the world and just focus in on our technique, and in this case, scales, and maybe some other sessions we'll do repertoire. And I personally will say that it gives me energy to focus in on something without all of the distractions. Maybe you're watching this in a year from now, and there won't be so many dire distractions as there are right now, which is wonderful, but there's still distractions. So it's really energizing to focus in on one particular subject. So, and yes, just replying to a question there, Andrew, yes, the replays are actually up on my YouTube channel, on our YouTube channel, Classical Guitar Corner. They will be there for the short term. We don't have any plans not to take them down at the moment. They'll also be edited and put inside the Academy without all of this fluff at the beginning. So we're about 5 minutes in. Sounds like it's time to get going. So grab your guitar. I did my nails this time. I felt very organized today. I had all of this time to prepare. So I did my nails, have my glass of water, I have my coffee. I'm all set up. Depending what time zone you're in, you might have a glass of water and some whiskey. That's totally fine too. So we are still in the key of G major. And by the way, that little improvisation at the beginning, if you're wondering what I was playing around with there, I was just really sitting in the key of G major. I did start to modulate a little bit, but what that sound is, that's a C sharp. That C sharp doesn't usually live in, doesn't really live in... Oh, I'm just seeing someone say we lost audio. Anyway, I'll keep going unless I get a... Okay, great. I think might just be Dave. Great, thank you, Brett. Appreciate that. Anyway, that's C sharp in here. It's like a beautiful tinge of color. Let's say we have the night sky. I just watched this amazing documentary on Antarctica. Yet another wonderful way to take our attention off things. And they showed this amazing footage of the northern lights, the aurora borealis. And so we've got this dark, star-studded sky, but then it's colored amazingly by these green lights. And I think that C sharp colors this in such a way. So what that is actually the Lydian mode. You may have heard about modes before. I'll be doing some teaching on the modes inside the Academy coming up. But basically we take a G major scale, and we talked about our scale degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. Now, if you stop on the 4, that's the C there. If we sharpen that, we go up half a step, we raise that 4th degree, there's a C sharp. That's a Lydian mode there. And it's my favorite of all the modes. So if we play a G major chord, and we add in C sharp, we get that kind of magical sound. Anyway, I have totally gone on a tangent. I will cut this out of the replay. But that's what it was. I was just noodling around with that as an improvisation tactic or point of departure. So here we go. Let's get into scale workshop number 3. We're going to be using the G major 2-octave scale here in 2nd position. And because I've gone over this before, I'm not going to walk through it as slowly as last time. If you are watching a replay or you're new to this, you can go back to the 2nd scale workshop. But we're going to be doing this G major scale 2 octaves in 2nd position. So it sounds like this. 2 octaves from, that's 1 octave, 2 octaves. And we will start by doing a little placement exercise. This is an exercise I like to do at beginnings of warm-ups. And it's if some of you, I know there's several teachers here at Classical Guitar Corner, so it's a really nice exercise for teachers because you can do it without the right hand, just the left hand, which really takes kids' attention in particular, if not all of us. And it's very quiet. So instead of a cacophony of classical guitars all playing at the same time, you will get a very quiet sound like this, which is a nice sound to have maybe at the beginning of a warm-up session, especially with a lot of guitars. So we are going to walk through this 2-octave scale, and I'm going to ask you to really focus your attention on the placement of each finger. So it's right up next to the fret, each and every finger, really close to the fret. So let's go and keep the rest of the fingers nice and relaxed in a line over the strings. Ready? G and A. Here comes B, B, C with the 2nd finger. D, didn't even make a sound. E, F sharp, G. Next note is A. 1, 3, 4. 2nd finger now. 2, 4, 1, 2. Very quiet scale. Let's go back down. Let's start on the G. Start on 2nd finger. Ready? 3, 4. G, F sharp, E. I feel like whispering because we're so quiet. B. Notice my other fingers are nice and relaxed and stretched out over the other frets, like they're ready to play. Here comes D on the 5th string. Focusing on the perfect placement. It's very relaxed. Maybe it's a nice way to end a practice session actually, because it will relaxes at the end, just a nice wind down. Right? It's very, very nice, obviously very gentle with the hands. It's good for our pressure. Now, we're going to bring the right hand into this. And I will say, I'm not big on the hyperbole of this is the exercise that will get everything you want out of your technique. But what we're about to do is really a key element to unlocking both legato and speed. So this is crucial to connecting those notes, making them sing, and speed. And what it is synchronization. It's quite an underrated thing, and it's also hard to work on. It's hard to demonstrate as a teacher, to be honest. It's to do with feel and timing. And what I'm talking about is we have, let's say, our first finger here, G. Second finger is what I meant to say. And then we're obviously going to play our fourth finger. Now, what happens a lot of the time is there's a little bit of synchronization issue, between the two fingers. Either the right hand comes down first and stops the sound, or more commonly, the left hand will actually move ahead of time. And of course, that's kind of what we use in a staccato technique where we're trying to cut that sound. So what we want to do, and this really is, try not to dismiss this as like, oh, whatever. It's actually quite challenging. It's to play exactly together only when we play the next note. And so it's the pace of the notes is going to be slow, as in they're long notes. But the movement as we play the next note is going to be lightning fast, because we want to leave this one finger down as long as we can before bringing the other finger into action, so that the note can live and connect as best it can to the next note. So hopefully I made that clear. But let's now walk through. So we're going to do long notes and focus on the synchronization between the two fingers. We're starting I and M in the right hand. We're going through this scale. Let's do 4 beats each. We might just do 1 octave. 3, 4. Don't move, don't move, don't move. 3. Now. 2, 3, 4. 2. Get your fingers ready over the frets. It's all slow and relaxed until it isn't. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Right, great. Let's pause there. We'll come back to that G and do the next octave. So again, we're listening to the connection between those two notes. So if you hear the note stop, and this is where it gets very subtle, if you hear it even just fractionally stop before it needs to, that's a synchronization thing you want to work on. So let's play it now half notes, so 2 beats each. Continuing on from G, find your G there, 4th finger, 4th string, 5th fret. And we're going to play 2 beats each, listening to the connection. 3, 4. Okay, on the way down, let's do it down, all the way down with half notes. And I'm going to ask you to now, if you can, if this gets too much at any point, you can just focus back on what I previously said. But if you feel comfortable, see if you can now put your attention on relaxing both hands while the note is sounding. So drop all the tension out of your hand except for what you need to hold down the note until it's needed. So relax, relax, relax. Energy, relax, relax. So relaxing in between these notes and only playing right at that very moment. All right, let's start up with this G. So starting on the G, 2nd finger, going down. 3, 4, 2 notes. Relax the hand. See how I look at my right hand. I don't keep the fingers, I don't keep them in the palm. They just come back to a relaxed position. And in the left hand, they're not poking out. Great. So yet again, another nice exercise, especially warming up. And as you can see, there's a lot of things to pay attention to, although the tempo is slow. Alrighty. So let's get our fingers moving. We're going to do triplets on each note. And this means we're just simply going to play 3 notes each on each degree of the scale. It's a pretty easy exercise. What we're working on here is correct alternation. If you are a guitarist that you find yourself repeating fingers in the right hand, this is a great scale variation to practice because you're starting the group of 3 each time with a different finger. I am, I am, I. If you do this a few times, you'll start to feel that finger be the accented one. So we're going to accent the first of each group a little bit, all right? So starting down here, we're going to go all the way up to G, maybe then we'll pause. 3 and 4 and... Oh, I said we would stop. Okay, so just to catch our breath, as it were, let's start off on the G now. So let's start all on the M finger here on that G. Ready? 3 and 4 and All right, just for fun, for those of you who want to pick up the speed a little bit, let's just do one up and down a little faster. 1, 2, 3, and 4 and... Great. You know, if I ever do an exercise where we take off in speed, something you can do to play along still is just play quarter notes along. Usually that will fit in somehow. Okay, so triplets. Now I'm going to show you, I talked about a really important concept before, which is the synchronization between right and left hand. And now I want to talk about one of the exercises that really transformed my left hand technique. Now I have a video of this on YouTube. In fact, it may be the very first video I ever put on the Classical Guitar Corner YouTube channel. It's called Efficiency of Movement, I think. Something like that. Anyway, this is an exercise that Thomas Kirchhoff taught me. He's a guitarist in Germany, and we met at several times, but this exercise was taught to me in Vienna at a festival. Same scale. I always use the G major scale. And I call it sticky fingers, just like the barbecue sauce. So what we're going to do is we're going to play through this G major scale. Economy of motion. That's right. Thank you, Dave. And we are going to hold down each finger until we need it again. So it's going to look like this. Second finger stays down. Now I've got 2 fingers down. First finger, so I've got 3 fingers down. Then second finger, fourth finger, 1, 3. By the time we hit F sharp, we've actually got all 4 fingers stuck down. Then 1. It actually is more effective going up than it is going down. So maybe just for the purposes of this workshop, we will just go up, ascending. So let's do it nice and slowly. Let's start off on the G with the second finger. I'll do 4 beats each, so we really have time to think about what we're doing and check in on our fingers. So 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold them both down. Now the first finger. Now the second finger is tricky. 2, 3, fourth finger. They're all on the 5th string. 3, 4, first finger. 2, 3. Here's the third finger. Now they're all down. All 4 fingers, like a chord. And 2, 3. First finger. 2, 3, 4. That's a bit of a stretch. 3, 4. 2, 3. Second finger. Oh, that's a leap. 3, 4. Fourth finger. First finger. And lastly, the G. It's a really great exercise. I think it's what it did for me is I used to have what a teacher once called fly away fingers. I had fingers that came away from the fretboard a lot. And this really, over time, I just did it every day for 6 months. This was my time as a student, but now as everyone has a lot of time on their hands, maybe you can do it too. It really was effective at keeping my fingers not only splayed out on the frets, but also close. Let's do that one more time for those of you who've got the hang of it. We'll do it a little bit faster. 2 beats each. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. I'll show you what it looks like on the way down. So we have them, it's not the same on the way down. Because you have to lift up to play the notes beneath, obviously. So really ascending is the virtuous is useful way of that. Okay. So I think that link has maybe been provided. So it was called Economy of Motion in the Left Hand. And you can see my very first YouTube video 10 years ago, actually. So now let's now synthesize that. And what I mean is that let's imagine that we've been playing that for 6 months straight and our hand has learned this magical ability to stay very close to the frets and relaxed and splayed out. So it's not bunching up here. It's not tilting out when we play the F sharp. It's not doing that. Thumb's not over. They're all hovering over each respective fret as if it were ready to play. I think of these sometimes like pistons. They just go down and up and down and up. You don't have to find the fret by stretching or reaching out. Because we're in position, they're right there. So let's now play just G major, 2 octaves, and up and down. And we're going to use I and M, nothing fancy. But we're really paying attention to keeping our fingers very close to the string. And when I say very close, let me see if I can rotate here. I'm talking like this. You see this distance? In metric, I would say about 3 millimeters. In imperial, I have no idea. Very short distance. Okay. Ready? Quarter notes. Nice and close. 3, 4. So we're not holding them down, but we're trying to keep them close. Holding them down the same string, yes. Can you see how the fingers, you can imagine, they're very reliable like this. Because you can do it literally you could do this blindfolded, because you know that if you push your 4th finger down, it's going to be on the 5th fret because we're used to that position. So we have just gone over the G major scale. We did perfect placement. We did a synchronization exercise, and we did triplets just to get the hand moving with that nice alternation. Then we did our sticky fingers exercise, and then tried to incorporate that economy of movement into our standard scale. Very nicely done. Now we're going to deal a little bit with speed bursts. This is something I was going to do last session, but we kind of ran out of time. So why are speed bursts good? Well, speed bursts mean that it gives your hands a chance to recuperate and relax in between fast sessions. Because if we just play just straight 16th notes at a fast tempo all the time, we usually will build up tension in our right hand unless we're used to that speed and we've built up to it in building blocks, which is exactly what we're going to do now. And so what we're looking for in speed bursts is sort of a short moment of energy, and yes, we have to use naturally a bit of tension in the hand, but then we release it. And it's usually in the right hand, but obviously the hands and the body's all connected, so you might find yourself gripping a little bit with the left hand. So what I want you to focus on when you have those longer notes, and you can make them as long as you like, but I want you to focus on relaxing your hands. So we're going to start off with quarter notes and eighth notes, then quarter notes and triplets, then quarter notes and 16th notes. And we'll go through it together, but of course you can integrate this at an appropriate speed for you in your own practice session. So let's just go through the process now. And what it's going to sound like is this. All right, so quarter, eighth, quarter. So the repeated notes, the faster notes are on the same note. All right, here we go. Starting on G. 3, 4. Relax your hands. Nice, I think I've gone. Hopefully I am in tune with you at home. Okay, so we just did quarter to eighth note. Now let's do quarter to triplets. That's going to sound like this. And if this feels easy to you, good. It should feel easy. It should feel relaxed and fluent. So focus on that relaxed left hand, the relaxed right hand, and control the rhythm. Ready? 1, 2, and 3, 4, and I tend to do a bit of a crescendo, decrescendo on these scales because it feels musical, and it's always good to feel musical. Okay, let's go to the 16th notes now. So it'll be... Now, not everyone will keep up with this, so if you want to, you could play the 8th notes again. Or simply quarter notes. Whatever is suited to your playing. But let's try for the 16th notes. Remember that the only way to get faster in terms of your capacity for speed is to push a little bit. So even if it sounds messy and ugly, go for it. Just give it a go. Ready? 1, da 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 da, 2, 3, da 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 da. Oh, sorry. Oh, I messed up. Sorry, everybody. Ready? 1, 2 E and 3, 4 E and Now, for those speed demons at home, let's do a little faster. Dum, da 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 dum, da 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 da. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Now, the next step with this is to take that rhythm or the rhythms, and instead of playing the faster repeated rhythm on one scale degree, we will actually play the scale one note at a time. So oh, someone's calling. Okay, so we'll start again with the eighth notes, but I think that the idea is straightforward enough. It sometimes can feel a little, takes us getting used to sometimes. So let's start with quarter eighth note. That will sound like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and I was going to say 5. Ready? 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. Always nice to have those, either the leading note here, the F sharp, or the A up here to round it all off. Okay, let's do triplets. So it's going to sound like this. Okay, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and often sort of the turnaround here where we reverse direction is a place that we get caught off guard a little bit. Okay, last but not least, let's do the 16th notes. It's going to sound like this. Etc. Ready? 1, 2 E and 3, 4 E and Great. And now let's, everybody in the pool, 16th notes, the whole scale. Ready? 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and sorry, I went to the high A there, maybe went out. Now I will tell you I'm going to go to that high A. It just feels good on these longer scales. Same one more time. 1, 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and voila! Great work, everyone. Thank you for sticking with me on that. Now, I will do one little, I wanted to stay on this particular scale, but I thought I'd just give you a little bit of teaser for next time when we're going to introduce shifting, and obviously we're going to get out of a single position. So for that, what I really like to focus on with shifting, if we're just honing in on shifting, is a single string scale. Instead of going across different strings, and even one of the scales we'll deal with later, which does have shifting in it. This one is very shift oriented. Because it's all on one string, you can't see the 12th fret, I have to get on my tippy toes to show you. It forces you to shift quite a lot. So let's do it. There's a couple of different ways to do this. But let's talk about what we're looking for. I like to think of the finger, the hand, as I'm going to put on my toes here so you can see. I like to liken it to a carriage on rails. So notice the hand isn't doing too much of this. We might do a little bit of that once we feel comfortable with this hand position. But for now, it's like, a carriage on a rails. Isn't distorting its left hand position. Right? It's relatively square. Yes, you can definitely find examples where we change position on the shift, but for now I want to look at consistency in the left hand as we shift. So play along with me. We're going to play the 3rd string so we can stay in G major. We're going to play open, 1st finger on A, 3rd finger on B, and 4th finger on C. We're going to be getting out of our comfort zone here pretty quickly. Open, 2nd fret, 4th fret, and 5th fret. Then we're going to take our first finger, and you can actually keep contact with the string. We're going to shift up to the D. It's going to feel great. Let's just do that much together. Ready? Quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. From here, we're staying in position. We're just going to put down our third finger. That is the E, which is the 9th fret of the third string. And then we're going to take that third finger, put it up 2 frets on the 11th fret, put up the 4th finger. That's one position. It's another position, then we slide up. Back down. So I know I'm going through this a little bit quickly. If we were together in person, which hopefully one day we will be, I could check in on everybody, make sure everyone's keeping up. But that is the beauty of the rewind button. Let's take this at quarter note speed, and then I'll hone in on a couple of things to listen for. So starting with the open string, just using I and M. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open. I'm going to shift. Shift with the third. Shift with the third again. 4th finger. Now, I can tell you with great surety that there's a couple of issues that come up again and again and again, because I've dealt with a lot of people now, and it's given me a great overview of what happens with shifts. One thing that does tend to happen when we shift is that we tend to accent the following note. Why? Because we are moving, tightly, and then we're injecting that, and it affects our right hand attack. We do this. Because we're engaging other muscles, it makes us accent. And for instance, in a practical sense, the divisé prelude, I think I missed a note in there somewhere, but we're shifting, very similar to what we're just doing now. And what I hear often is this. Sometimes we even accent beforehand. But when we think of the music, if it were to be sung, there's nothing technical in our voice that would give us reason to accent those notes. It's a technical thing on the guitar. It's our hands, the shifting. So we really want to work on no accent on the shifted notes. So let's go through it slowly and see if we can keep them nice and even. I'm going to keep my toes up. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can actually practice this just on that magical closing door behind me. Did you see that? There's ghosts in here. We can actually just practice that on one shift at a time if you want. You could start up here on the 7th fret, and you could do this. Just do a little fragment. Or we could do something like this. Use just one finger all the way up and down. I mean, it's maybe a little bit of overkill there, but all of these kind of things work on the shifting. Now, of course, the other aspect that happens with shifting is the disconnect. So, staccato, or not playing legato, basically. So we get sometimes this. We get the accent and a cut short note. And what we want it to sound like. So what we can do here is this. Now, this time I'm going to ask you open, first finger, third finger. Now shift on the first finger. Right? And then come back down. 3, 1, open. Let's all play that together, just up to the C. 3, 4, open, A, B, shift. So now we've played that little segment different ways. And we can benchmark our shift. If we play it like this. no shifting. So that's our benchmark. Now, can you close your eyes? Maybe we need them open to see the shift, but can we hear the same connected notes with a shift? That is the challenge. And I challenge you to do that just with that little fragment there. Once without shifting, once with shifting. And of course, we will hear it, especially if we're on the bass strings, but it shouldn't really change the shaping. We want a certain amount of smoothness in our technique so that when we get a melody that's beautiful and shaped, that we don't add in accents or staccato because of our technique. If we add it in, we want to add it because we musically have chosen to add it in. That's the big difference. So if we wanted to do this, I'm choosing to add in staccato. Whether you like it or not is subjective, but it's not beholden to our technique. And that really is the whole reason we play practice technique in scales, is so that when we get to the music, we can command the instrument, have a mastery of the instrument, so that we can get our musical ideas out without anything impeding us. That's really the end goal. Shifting, left-hand transitions, stretches, all of those things that we work on are going to come into play into this. So that's where I'm going to leave it in this session, a little bit of shifting technique. And I will see you next time when we're going to branch out of the second position with that G major scale. So thank you, and let's have some time for some comments. I should really have a beer ready for this. Yes, okay. So tell me, how did you do? How did you do with those scales? Let me know. I'm curious to know. I know for some of you it might go by too quickly, or it might maybe even be too slow. I mean, obviously, we cannot cater for everyone specifically in this format, but I'm trying to do something that I think would be of interest to a broad range, so I'd be interested to know. So if you do have any questions about anything that I just played, let me know, and I'd be happy to answer them. It's also nice just to say hello to everyone. I actually, although I do get a little stressed preparing for these because live streaming is just a little bit stressful, to be honest, I also look forward to just seeing everyone and saying hello, even though we just sometimes see people's names pop up. It's very nice to see those names pop up. So thank you. So Daniel said difficulty on the 16th notes, but tracked 8th speed. Great, yes. You know, and that's what's really nice, and I like to do this with people that I work with, is, you know, actually on a, let's say the practice routines at the top, you pencil in a date and what you're able to do with comfort. You know, let's say G major 2-octave scale, I can do the 8ths at tempo 80 meisels metronome, or beats per minute. And then, you know, maybe a week later, you'll find you can do it at 85. And then a month later, you're playing 16th notes. And it's just really nice because we eventually fall into those gullies, you know, the dips. And it's nice sometimes in those moments to have the affirmation of, look, we have really progressed quite a ways, even if it doesn't feel like it. So I think that the progress journals at Classical Guitar Corner really serve that purpose for some people, or at least I hope they do. That was really the idea behind it. Michelangelo asked, how long, I can put this up, here we go. Oop, there it is. How long should we practice scales as a percentage of time? Well, look, scales are really a great tool because they're very versatile. You know, you can practice speed, you can practice synchronization, you can practice shifting, you can practice all sorts of things. But you might find other exercises that work well with those as well, because a scale is kind of like a Swiss Army knife of exercises. You know, you can do slows, speed, you can do crescendo, decrescendo, you can do rhythms. There's double dotting there. All sorts of things. But of course, you can do them in other ways. You could, what did we say? We said slurs, rhythms. You could just do 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, or you could do it in arpeggios. Whoa, a C wants to join the arpeggio. Also, you know, all sorts of things. You do all sorts of exercises that will work on these problems. And really, it is about fixing problems or finding solutions. And so scales are just very good at that. So in answer to your question, you could actually devote a fair amount of your technical work to scales if you were using them mindfully. If you just run up and down them without really a purpose, it's a waste of time, in my opinion. But if you really have a laid out work schedule, and I mean, that's what I tried to do with the 20 practice routines, is really give people a workout schedule, a routine to work on. It's not the be all end all, but it is something that's taken the workout for you so that you can just read it through. And when we get to scales, every practice routine has scales in it. There's just a variety of different approaches, different goals and requests. So, and it depends where you are as well. For instance, Ko Kazama, who sometimes comes on this feed, actually. He's down in Miami. He was a student of mine up at Yale University when I was teaching him as an undergraduate. And then he went on to do the master's program at Yale. Then he went on to do a doctorate at Stony Brook with Jerry Willard. And now he's got a position teaching in Miami, university position. So he's really done well. And I have to say, he demonstrated his work ethic by... in the first lesson, I said, look, we can do a couple things here. We can play repertoire and learn things, and it's going to be fine. You know, we'll improve. But I really see some deficiencies in your technique, and I would suggest this technical routine. And we did scales and arpeggios. I wrote a scale and arpeggio book years ago. I think it's still online, but we did that for 6 months. And he had the fortitude and trust, which I deeply appreciated. He had the trust to do that with me for 6 months. And I really believe that set him in good stead for improving. And that's not for everybody, you know, because it's going to be a balance of technique is mind-numbing for some people, and they get no joy out of it. And if they did that for 6 months, they would give up the guitar. So that's not for them. But for the people who can do it, sometimes it's going to be potentially 90 or 100%. That's pretty extreme, but it depends on what you need. Sorry, I went off on a little bit of a story there. So Carlos asked, from open G to second string, is that considered a shift? No, I mean, so you mean if you play open G on the third string and then an open B, that it's not, we'd call it a string cross, well, with a right hand anyway. But no, a shift is always going to be going up and down the fingerboard. So as our hand literally shifts, but we don't call it a shift this way. It's just, we don't often refer to that as a shift. Thanks, Kenneth. Yes, that effective movement exercise, the economy of motion exercise is really, I love that one too. Hey Jenny, good to see you. I'm just reading through some of the questions here so I can maybe give some feedback. Bonjour Jacques, Monsieur Jacques. Jacques is watching. He has an amazing 10-string instrument, and it makes me confused just to see it. Great, great, great. So Les asked, all of this will help my violin fingers, yes? Now, for those of you who maybe haven't heard my terminology, and I do believe this is what Les is asking about, is I use a term. If you ever watch a violinist, I'll do something silly right now. If you watch a violinist, someone's gonna screen capture this. I think it's gonna be Nikki. But notice the angle of the fingers, right? There's stretch, especially the fourth finger stretched out. You find this with mandolin players as well. I play the mandolin. And so if we were to do on the guitar, it would look like that. And a lot of people do that. So it comes from a little bit from C major. When we learn C major, we learned it just chords, block chord, bar chords. Our hand rotates like that. But of course, because we're so dependent on the fourth finger in classical music, that's really going to limit our use of the fourth finger. It also bunches up the other fingers. So I call that, and no disrespect to violinists or mandolinists, but I call that violin position, where it's kind of collapsed to the left. So the generic standard position I use is a square on, or position where the fourth finger is leaning towards the bridge, the first finger is leaning towards the nut, and 2 and 3 are more or less perpendicular. Not exactly, but more or less. And you can really establish that by holding down 1, 2, 3, 4 on any given string. Time for some water, been talking too much. And I actually go through this. One of the, I think, the most important lessons inside the Academy is in the fundamentals lesson, and that's what left-hand positioning. And I go in over that and I give better visuals. Like you can see like that, So the violin position is like this, and we want to be, in general, more like that. There are many exceptions to that, but that's where I like to start. And it's because it gives good access, especially to our fourth finger, but to all fingers. And yes, the G major scale and the economy of motion exercise will be great at helping with that. Hannah enjoys the seminars. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you for attending them. Ian said he's just getting back after an illness. Great, Ian. That's wonderful to hear, and hope you stay well. Jenny asked, do you have any recommended exercises to train? Let me put it up. Do you have any recommended exercises to train the left-hand fingers to stretch out as much as they need to? Mine stubbornly refuse to do that. Yes, I have one that everybody hates. Remember how I said Thomas Kirchhoff showed me that G major scale? Well, his partner, his wife, Dale Kavanagh, Canadian guitarist, showed me this exercise in their festival in Iserlohn. And it's in the practice routines. Maybe Dave, if you're still there, it's almost end of Dave's day. But you could tell me where that is. But it's this. So I'm rushing through it, and it's, funnily enough, one of those exercises that is more difficult the slower you go, because you have to hold these stretches. I haven't done this for a while. Maybe I need to do it myself. And obviously once it gets down here, it gets quite difficult. So I don't recommend going down there on your first few times. Keep it up in the higher positions. For that descending figure, we're just using a major 7 chord and descending one finger at a time. But yes, it is in the practice routines. Jim asked, a bit off topic, but sometimes I get tired of holding my guitar on left thigh with the foot on the footstool. How about holding flamenco style for break? Is this a bad habit to get into? Great. I think varying it up, Jim, will be really healthy. Have a listen to the podcast with Ricardo Gallen. Also have a look at some of his videos. He's a phenomenal musician, guitarist, and educator. I really love sitting in on his masterclasses. He's a very good pianist as well. He'll often go to the piano to demonstrate things. So he sits cross-legged in sort of a flamenco style position. He worked very closely with an Alexander technique to make sure that this position wasn't, doing bad things. But yes, it can work. I think getting up, moving around, changing your position is going to be helpful. So have a listen to him, because he's really worked on that different positioning. Crystal is saying, I struggle with the sticky fingers exercise. Should the thumb stay anchored on the neck while you rotate the wrist? Or is it okay to move the whole shape of your hand? Oops, I lost it. Whole shape of your hand subtly. Yeah, you can. It's a little bit connected to what Jenny asked about stretch. I think you can have some mobility in there, I guess, and you maybe, again, referencing the podcast, if you want to listen to the podcast with Karen Sharp, an Australian guitarist, she has very small hands. And sorry, I'm just laughing at Dave's comment that he screen captured that thing immediately. So my point is, it's probably got more to do with stretch and flexibility than your hand size at all. No, I've never met anyone's hand sizes that are too small, and you can see an amazing video of these. I think it's North Korean kids playing guitar in an ensemble, and they're tiny little people, but they really get around the instrument. So there's plenty of examples of small-handed people getting over that. It's flexibility. But yes, you can have some mobility in there, but you really want to stay away from large collapsing movements. So yeah, a subtle changes, I think, just to compromise will be fine. Insidia asked, how long have I been playing the guitar before attempting to learn Asturias? Well, I think we all attempt to learn Asturias on day 2. Is that not true? we all just, oh yeah, there it is. And that gives us that buzz to move on to day 3 and 300. But I played it a lot when I was in an undergrad. It's a great piece to play because people love it, you know. The second section is stunningly beautiful, but obviously it's that first section. And there's certain things, so there's chord shapes, or there's techniques of the triplets. This one is, you know, everyone's got some little technique that most people anyway, have. There's something will trip them up in terms of technique. Like those triplets, I thought that's my hardest one, the triplets, to keep that in time. But if you go and listen to the piano version, a lot of this guitar, what we think is standard, isn't in the piano version. It sort of was made, you know, arranged. So I'm actually interested in someone coming up with some different versions. I mean, it's so ingrained in our community that people probably would be a little bit suspicious of a different version of Asturias, but why not? Anyway, I would say, look, it's not about time, it's about technique being ready. So if I were to give a time, 5 to 10 years, so it's a hard one to give an actual date. Martin asked, do you have any tips for keeping your fingers directly over the G string when shifting up the neck? When I shift, sometimes my fingers aren't falling directly back on the string. Right. Well, I think any exercise, and we can do this with, where you keep the fingers down on the string. Same thing with, you know, our sticky fingers exercise, or this. It's probably the most basic and very effective shifting exercise would be chromatic on one string. That will start to train your finger to stay on that string, and it'll give them a certain reliability and consistency is what we're after, to be on one string. All right, I'm going to just zip through and just check. Oh, there's quite a few more comments. Cindy said, thanks for the finger stretch torture technique. Well, you're welcome. You know, it's funny. Sorry, I was reading Jenny's comment about 5 to 10 years, so I won't be getting that then. Mysterious, that is. It's funny what, you know, everyone, as I was saying, has strengths and weaknesses. You know, one of the big pieces people say, we're going to do the rest because it's in drop D tuning. But the chaconne, right? When I learned the chaconne, there's obviously some very hard. The scales are tricky, and then yeah, arpeggios can be tricky as well. But all in all, it's manageable. It's not some. There are other pieces that are much more feel more sort of impossible, and they're not usually the ones you suspect. They're usually the chunky ones, the chord-based ones. A lot of the Rolandians, the jazz arrangements, or Barrio Sequenza, or things like that. But what they do require is other things that are often not valued as much as speed, and that is a musical foundation of understanding and shaping and stamina to shape a long piece. And it's really going to be about the fundamentals. Like, you could play Asturias at half speed and still have it very effective if the musical shaping was there and the technique was there. But you're often going to hear Asturias played because people want to get to it so quickly. And this goes for any, and it's going to... Right? And they rush to it with a technique that's not ready for a piece like that. And you hear all of that, and you hear that rushing. And what it does, which is a real shame, is it imbues that piece forever, more or less, unless you do a great deal of concentrated work, with that early technique. And I think it's a shame. I mean, I get it. I also played pieces out of my league when I was younger, but I was so grateful to Rafael Agostino, who reined me and said, no, stop it. Because you don't ruin them, but you do, as I said, you imbue them with an early technique. And you'll find that if you go back to old pieces, you start doing old habits, because our muscles are a bit like that, our muscle memory anyway. Anyway, I'm starting to... Nazanin said, it's 1:30 a.m. here in Tehran. Great to have someone from Tehran. What an amazing thing. Welcome. Well, that looks like the end of the comments, so I might wrap it up. That was a nice longish session, about an hour. So thank you, everyone. I know there's a lot of members here from the Classical Guitar Corner Academy. Like I said at the beginning, if you want to be notified in advance, please do sign up to the mailing list. And we have a special mailing list that notifies these live sessions. It's classicalguitarcorner.com/live. And I wish you all well. I hope you're happy and safe. And I hope this provided some distraction, some focus, some fun. Obviously wouldn't be what it is if you didn't turn up. So thank you very much. I'll be doing more of these next week, I'm sure. And I have a special interview guest lined up for next week I think people will be excited about. So stay tuned. Take care, everyone. And thank you. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.